In the last segment, parts 1, 2, and 3, we talked about errors in understanding the Word. What we want to do, beginning with this session and pretty much for the rest of the class, is head off those errors at the pass, if you will. In other words, not get into those errors. Let's get it right the first time. And so we want to look at keys to understanding the Word, and there are many of them. And the first one we're going to talk about is figures of speech. Figures of speech. Every language on earth has figurative usages. Figures of speech are legitimate grammatical constructions designed to enhance communication because they make the words come alive, if you will. For example, I could say, I'm very clumsy. And you would get an idea, yeah, he's very clumsy. But if I say, I'm as clumsy as a hog on ice, do you get a mind picture of some little porker splayed on the rink? Something like that. Yeah, that's like, wow, that is more vivid. Okay, now since basketball is now a worldwide game and loved by people in virtually every country, and the NBA is populated with almost more people from outside the United States than inside, here's one. He's in the paint and he may go glass. And you're thinking, I have no idea, but this sounds like a messed up artist that can't see. Whatever. Okay? That means, that's a figure of speech used in basketball. He's in the painted area of the lane, and he may shoot the ball off of the glass backboard and into the basket. Or here's one that is pretty common today. This, our chairman of the board, Paul Knopf, will love this one. I'll Google it. Most everyone, I'll Google it. Holy mackerel. I'll Google it. What do you mean? Everyone knows what you mean. It means you'll go to google.com and ask a question and get the answer. So I want to give you just a few. They're in your syllabus. We're not going to take the time to turn, but I have the verses printed out in the syllabus. And figures of speech give you a more vivid mind picture. And how vivid is God? How vivid does He want to be? The universe, it's like 200 billion galaxies, they're saying now. We've seen some of the photos. They're amazing, indescribable. So don't you think His usage of language would also be vivid and colorful and alive? So here's James 1:6, some familiar examples. It says, let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. Most English-speaking people will recognize this as a simile, a comparison using like or as. Luke 22:19, Jesus at the Last Supper, the Lord's Supper, this is my body, which is given for you. And they took the bread and doesn't taste like it. It wasn't His literal body. It's a figure of speech, which most of us would recognize as a metaphor. 2 Corinthians 12:7, Paul said, unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations God has given me, there was given to me by the devil, I think we may be reading these verses later on, a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, very clear, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. A thorn in the flesh. It's an idiomatic usage. Idioms are all over every language. Here's one. Isaiah 53:5, written in about 700 BC, says he was pierced. That's a past tense. He was pierced for our transgressions. Jesus hadn't even been born. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. What's up with that? It's a lesser known figure of speech called heterosis and exchange, and here it's an exchange of tense. And then we have cultural usages, which we're going to see a bunch of in John 4. But in John 13:18, an interesting verse, Jesus talking about Judas and how Judas turned against him. And Jesus said, he has lifted up his heel against me. Here we are in America in the 21st century. If you're in the 22nd, this class has really lasted a long time. But we might think, some kind of karate move. He's lifted up his, no. It means he walked away from me. And when you walk away, you lift up your heel. Okay? So, the Bible was written in an Eastern context. We're going to see other figures of speech as we continue in the class. But this little segment is called Light Through an Eastern Window, and we're going to go to John chapter 4 and read most of this chapter, which not only is loaded with cultural usage and aspects of life in the near Middle East, it also is a tremendously moving record and is an account of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ risking social rejection by breaking social norms, reaching across cultural barriers to help someone. He was never bound by culture. Truth always supersedes culture. So, John chapter 4, verse 1, we'll start reading there in a moment, but in the culture of the time, nothing's really changed. Water was crucial for life. So it's still crucial, but you may, and probably do, just go to your tap or your big bottle of water with the spigot on it, just flip there it is. That's not how it was back in the day. The people had to go to a spring or to a well or a river or somewhere that had clean water and get it and bring it home and store it, and that meant they had to go a lot. And most women went either early in the morning or in the evening or both, but the point was they're avoiding the heat of the day. All of these things I'm sharing with you will be relevant to the record we're going to read. The Israelites recognized God as the source of what they called living water. Jesus is going to use that phrase in this record, as opposed to common water, which was what was taken from the sources like a well or a spring and then stored, and then it became common water. And water was used for purification, for health reasons, and also for religious, ceremonial, spiritual purification, like a type of a cleansing and so forth. And then it was very important for hospitality, because when someone comes to your house, they, can I have a drink of water? Sure. Here. Wait a minute. What if you had to get up early, carry a pot on your head, go over to the well, get the thing, come back, can I have a drink of water? Are you really that thirsty? Oh, all right. So it made a big difference. It was a very big sign of hospitality to give someone water. So the autumn rain filled up the springs and the wells, and that's why the festivals were mostly in October, like the Feast of Tabernacles. Remember John 7, the last day of the feast, Jesus stood and said, if anyone's thirsty, because they had a water offering at the Feast of Tabernacles, and he said, if anyone is thirsty, let him come unto me and drink. You want water? I am the eternal or the everlasting drinking fountain. And so, in this particular area, there was no river nearby, so the well that we're going to read about was very important and a very big deal. So, verse 1, chapter 4, when therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, parenthesis, though Jesus himself didn't baptize anybody, only his disciples did. Why does it say that? Why? Who cares? Because Jesus was destined, as John the Baptist prophesied early in the gospel records, he will baptize you with Holy Spirit. And we're going to read all about it, trust me, the internal cleansing that superseded the ceremonial external cleansing of H2O. So Jesus didn't baptize anybody. Verse 3, he left Judea, departed into Galilee, and of course he knew the straightest distance between two, or the shortest distance between 2 points was a relatively straight line, so he had to go through Samaria. So what? It's a big deal, very important. Why does God take the time to point out that Jesus had to go through Samaria? What was Samaria? Obviously, it's where the Samaritans lived. And the Samaritans, if you go back to places like 2 Kings 17:24 and following, you can read about the origin of their race. They were racially inferior in the eyes of the Jews. They were kind of half-breed Jews, and the Jews were really snooty about their pedigree, and so they looked down upon these people. And the Samaritans had had a pagan background, but during the time of Alexander the Great, there had been a surge of religious purity, and some of them had come to knowledge of some of the Old Testament because this woman is going to be remarkably knowledgeable. We'll see as we read. And so, remember, Jews wouldn't give a Samaritan the time of day, and in this culture, men and women did not interact anything like they do today. Good heavens. They would never stop to speak. A woman would never stop to speak to a man on the road, and a man would not do what Jesus is about to do. So, had to go through Samaria, came to a city, verse 5, of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now, Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied, Jesus was pooped. He walked just about everywhere he went. He walked for miles and miles. And so he was tired from the journey, and he sat down on the well. And it was about the 6th hour, which, remember, was high noon. Who cares what time it was? Why would God take the time to say that? There must be a reason for it. I'll tell you what I think the reason is. You can see if you think it makes sense. The woman was an outcast. She had a checkered past. She didn't go to the well when all the other women went to the well because they might have run her off. She is going to the well in the hottest time of day. All right, Jesus had been sitting on the well, as we know, and apparently got up. I love that, with his foot up there. How's it going, ma'am? Okay, so a woman showed up. Verse 7. There's a painting of a reasonable facsimile there. There came a woman of Samaria to get some water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." I don't think that's how he said it. No. He said, "Good morning, ma'am. Would you mind giving me a cup of water?" And he knew it was going to blow the woman's mind, or we might say astound her. Now, these parentheses about the disciples are cute, because sometimes they're kind of a step behind, a day late and a dollar short. But eventually they came through, as history tells us. So we see a parenthesis, verse 8, for his disciples were gone away to the city to get lunch. It was noon. There's a lunch whistle. We're out of here. They're missing the action. They should have stuck around and watched and seen. Don't worry, they'll be back. This is a riot. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him. She was astonished. She said, "How is it that you, being a Jew, are asking me for a drink, because I'm a woman? And not only that, I'm a Samaritan woman." Ooh, my gosh. The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. It's a television commercial. It's been popular in America. It says, "Think outside the bun." Jesus was very good at thinking outside the cultural norm, if it meant helping someone that he couldn't help any other way. And he answered and he said, this is a great conversation, he said, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is asking you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." I think what's happening here is Jesus is offering her purification from sin and newness of life. And eventually, as we read in the last segment, it cost Jesus his life to do that. So this is as he was leading up to it earlier in his ministry, and he was not bound by tradition or culture. The woman said to him, "Well, you don't have any little bucket on a string there. How are you going to get the water out of there? It's very deep. Where are you going to get the living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank thereof himself and the children and his cattle?" His cattle were drinking out of it? I guess they just got the water. And anyway, verse 13. Jesus answered and said unto her, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him," figurative language mixed in with cultural customs and so forth. This helps us to get the most out of the Bible, the more of these kinds of things that we understand. There are lots of books that are available on the subject. Here's one, Manners and Customs of the Bible, James M. Freeman, a very good book. And there are other books, and I'm going to try to put a lot of these in the syllabus, references for you. So, whosoever drinks, Jesus said, 13, whoever drinks of this water from the well, you're going to get thirsty again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never thirst. The water I'll give him will be a well of water springing up into everlasting everlasting life. And she was sold. She said, I'll take it. Sir, give me, that's the word kurios, Lord, like, give me this water that I thirst not and don't have to keep coming here to get it every day. Now, here is one of the most perpendicular, non sequitur-ish replies in a conversation in the Bible. She said, I'll take it. I'd like to have the kind of water that you're talking about. And Jesus said, go call your husband and come back. First of all, where'd that come from? Second, why is he bringing this up? Does she even have a husband? What's going on here? I think Jesus is walking by the Spirit. And hey, he says we can be like him. We could get this kind of revelation to say something to someone that might open their heart. It can happen. It does happen. If we're listening and paying attention and focused on helping someone. She said, I don't have a husband. Jesus said, right on, honey. You don't have a husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke the truth. Now, we don't know any more than that about her, but I believe that Jesus is probing her moral history. It appears that her past was not that good. There's something that maybe she needs to be changed from or healed from emotionally or whatever. And so she says, I don't have a husband, and he speaks prophetically into her life. I know you don't. You've had 5, and the guy you're with now is not your husband. I know you're telling me the truth. And this woman is awesome. I love this woman because despite whatever her past was, she stepped right in there. She could have said, who do you think you are to talk to me like that? And hit him with her pot. But no, she said, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Whoa. And she goes on, because his piercing remark, in the right sense, penetrating whatever wall was around her heart, opened up. She said, look, 20, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say it's in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship. Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour comes when you will neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. You, Samaritans, aren't quite clued in here. You're not getting the full picture. You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour comes, and now is on the way, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. God is spirit. Remember, we read, God is not a man. Right, God is spirit. That's why he's invisible. Jesus came to make known to people like this woman what God was really like. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming. By the way, I said Mashiach was the Greek word for Messiah. It's really the Hebrew word. Christos is the Greek counterpart to that. But she said, I know that the Messiah is coming, who's called Christ, the Anointed One. When he is come, he will tell us all things. That is amazing that she believed that. And Jesus looked her right in the eye, and for the only time prior to his trial, as far as I can read, I think this is correct, the only time he ever specifically told anyone, I am the man. I who speak to you am he. What do you think happened in her heart when she heard those words? She heard him say, I who speak to you am he. Oh my gosh. What happened in her heart? Something happened. Let's keep reading. Uh-oh. Who shows up just when the program is over? It's not quite over, but oops, here come the disciples. Verse 27, and upon this came his disciples. Now look, they're walking up to the well. They can see. And they marveled that he talked with the woman. Why? Listen, this doesn't mean anything to us in American culture. You talk to any woman, well, whatever, anytime, yeah, whatever. This was unheard of. And here they come. They're coming back. They see Jesus. They're going, hey, Matthew, Jesus is talking to some chick up there. My God, what's he? She looks like she's a Samaritan to boot. Oh, my. But look what it says. Yet none of them said, what are you doing, Jesus? How come you're talking to this woman? So we'll get back to the disciples again. But look, the woman then left her water pot. Ladies, some of you in this live audience have purses. Women are so attuned. They're sitting in a chair. They get up, instantly grab the purse, got the purse never leaves them, never leave the purse behind. Excuse me, without water, you die. The water pot was extremely vital. Never did a woman leave her water pot. But this woman was so turned on about Jesus Christ that her priorities changed a little bit. Not that she was never going to have a water pot again, but she was so excited that she had met the Messiah and he had pierced her soul with his words of love. And she left her water pot and hightailed it back to the city. She hurried back to the city and she said to the who? The men. She said to the men. She said to the men. She went to, apparently women too maybe, but she went right to the men. Hey, listen, you guys, everybody, listen. I just met the Messiah. You got to come. He told me everything I've ever done. Hyperbole, figure of speech. He blew my mind. Come see a man. Verse 29, which told me all things I ever did. Is not this the Messiah? Verse 30, if you're in that time, you can't believe this happened. Then they went out of the city and came to him. What? Some woman whose reputation was apparently shady comes back. Now, it's not like New York City with 7 million people. It's some village with whatever number of people live there. You guys, it doesn't tell us exactly maybe everything she said, but the point is that there was enough of a change in her that the people saw it. Perhaps they knew her before, perhaps they didn't. You can reach your friends and family with the truth, and you can reach other people that you've never met before, because there are some people looking for truth. Many times it helps to have a little credibility with them. It's your brother, your cousin, your fellow worker, your teammate, college friend, whatever. Yeah, you have a modicum of credibility if you haven't destroyed it so far with them. And so, but this woman came back and she was so different that virtually the whole city followed her. 31 Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the disciples were urging Jesus, Master, have lunch. We brought you lunch. Come on, you gotta eat. But he said to them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. Therefore, said the disciples one to another, we get it, he's doing the work of God. He must have been witnessing to that woman. Nope. They said, did someone bring you lunch? I mean, I thought we were going to bring you lunch. Jesus said unto them, Jesus rolled his eyes a lot. That's how he is with me. He's rolling his eyes a lot, like, oh, John's at it again. All right. Jesus said unto them, look at this verse, this can be you. My meat, my food, my nourishment, my sustenance, that which keeps me going is doing the will of him that sent me and finishing his work. Jesus was on a mission from God. Okay? That's how the Blues Brothers said it with their Chicago accent. That's a very popular American movie with a sequel. Anyway, Jesus was on a mission from God, and nothing would deter him from finishing that mission. Then he turned. Now, this verse is not easy to understand unless we know a little bit about the culture and so forth, because he's talking to the disciples. What's unfolding? The people are coming out of town with the woman down the road to the well. Okay? So Jesus said to them, 35, don't say there are yet 4 months and then comes the harvest. Oh, we got plenty of time. He said, lift up your eyes and look on the fields. Figurative usage. Look at these people coming. It's like a harvest. We can give them the word, and they can bear fruit in their lives. And so it says they are white, all ready to harvest. What I've read, I wouldn't stake my life on it, but the people of the time wore white because it reflected the sun, covering claws with a little rope around it like that. And so a whole crowd of them was coming. So he said, look, here they come. Verse 36, and he that reaps receives wages and gathers fruit unto life eternal, that both he who sows and he that reaps may rejoice together. And herein is that saying true, one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that whereon you bestowed no labor. Other men labored, and you are entered into their labors. In other words, this woman has done all the work so far. She's bringing these people kind of an altar call. So now fan out into the crowd and get them on track. The last 4 verses of this record are solid gold. Verse 39, and many of the Samaritans of that city believed on him for the saying of the woman. Many of the Samaritans of that city believed on him just because the woman told them about him and said, he told me everything I've ever done. It's unbelievable. He's a prophet. However she said it, she reached them and motivated them to come to Jesus. And that's all you and I are doing. We are leading people to Christ. We're not going to save them, heal them, whatever. Jesus will keep his word. You can count on him to do his part. You can boldly tell people, Jesus will meet that need for you. Verse 40, so when the Samaritans were come unto him, they besought him that he would tarry with them. Hey, will you hang out here for a couple of days with us? And what do you think they did? Oh, they played pinochle. No, they listened to him teaching. How do we know? We keep reading. He abode there 2 days, verse 41, and many more believed because of his own word. Jesus will touch people that you bring to him. Last verse, they said unto the woman, now we believe, not because of your saying, hey, thank you for telling us about Jesus and risking our rejection to reach out to us. We really appreciate that. Excuse me, how do you know that the person you witnessed the word to is not going to believe? You don't. Now, lots of people are not going to believe. They're going to reject you. They may even slap you. Some places, they might kill you. But we don't know until we give people the opportunity. The word says those who hunger and thirst after righteousness will be filled. So set some of the bread of life and the meat of the word and some living water in front of them and see if they eat. If they do, they're hungry. If they don't, they're not, no matter what they say. They may blame you or, They said unto the woman, now we believe, not because of your saying, for we have heard him ourselves, and know that this is indeed the Christ, the Savior of the world. Jesus is still alive because God raised him from the dead, and he will do no less for anyone that you speak to about him.